right now. Being on this stage is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to go Diamond. I wanted opportunities to speak in public, and this has been a dream of mine for probably 30 years. Even as a small kid, I used to tell my parents what jobs will require me to stand in very large groups of people, because that's what I want to be. and even like right now, I'm standing up here and I am so excited, and my hands are shaking because it's a little bit of an adrenaline rush for me too, and my knees are shaking and my heart is racing, and I can't hardly contain how excited I am right now. Yes, thank you. So, just curious, how many of you would be completely terrified to take my spot right now? Okay, thank you for being honest. If I handed the microphone to you and called you up here and said, okay, you have the next 30 minutes, go for it. You got this. What are some physical reactions that you might feel? Nausea? Fainting, crying, shaky hands, butterflies, heart racing. Okay, these are all really, really good. So what's really cool about this is that science has proven that our body has a physical reaction to every emotion that we experience. And they've actually gone so far as to do imaging, where they will and they can determine where the heat and the cold are in your body during the emotion you're experiencing. So for example, when you're super angry, your blood rushes to your head and there is heat in your head, because that's, you know, the term hot-headed, right? Someone who gets angry really easy. And let's say when you are surprised, the blood rushes from your body, so you're like cold everywhere because you're like shocked. What's really interesting is that every emotion has a very unique physical response, except for two emotions. There are two emotions that are completely and totally identical on a physical level: fear and excitement. So what does that teach us? That teaches us that we have a choice. That the only difference between fear and excitement is our attitude about it. What are we choosing to feel in that moment? I know that some of you would be completely terrified to come up here, but the physical response of that, the shaky hands and the weak knees and the heart racing, all of those things are exact responses that you could feel when you were excited. Fear is excitement without breath. Isn't that powerful? Think about, okay, let's pretend for just a second you are about to win $1 million. Someone's handing you a lottery, you just won $1 million. You are so excited, you're going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, right? And you're breathing over and over, and you're almost hyperventilating because you're breathing so much. Now, let's pretend you're afraid. Someone jumps out in a dark hallway and you scream because you're terrified. What do? Right? No breath. We lose our breath in that moment. So the only difference is choosing to breathe through the moment. I heard a story once when I was about 13 years old that really made an impact on my life. And I talked about this a little bit on the call that Brad made mention to. But I was in Sunday school, and at this point in my life, I mean, let's get real, none of us enjoyed 13. I would bet there's not a single person in here who enjoyed being 13 years old. At least women. The ladies in here know what I'm talking about. And I was 13, I was very insecure, I had a very low self-esteem, I struggled in school, I had a lot of bullying situations that I was dealing with, and things were rough at home. You know, all over my world, it was just a little bit chaotic. And I was feeling a little bit hopeless. and stuck. I can remember as a young teenager feeling very stuck and not feeling like I had control over anything in my life. And I'm sitting in Sunday school, and the teacher gets up and she starts talking about this story that she read. And the story is about these twin brothers. And these twin brothers, one is a very successful CEO, very powerful man, has an amazing family, he's been married for 25 years, his kids are successful, and he's a motivational speaker. He's very prominent in the community. And then you have his twin brother. And his twin brother is in prison for life. He's been divorced 3 times. His kids won't speak to him. And the reporter caught wind of this, and she decided that she wanted to learn a little bit more about this story. It fascinated her. So she first went to the man in prison. And she said, "Tell me about yourself." And so he went on this whiny rampage about how he was in prison and falsely accused of blah, 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 blah. How he'd been divorced and how his kids wouldn't speak to him, but it wasn't his fault, and blah, 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 right? And then she said, "Well, what made you who you are today?" He said, "You know what? It's really simple." He said, "My dad was an alcoholic. He was abusive. My mom was a drug addict and was passed out most of the time. My twin brother and I had to pretty much raise ourselves, and we just didn't have much of a chance." And she said, "Okay, thank you, I appreciate your time." And she goes and she makes an appointment with this very successful CEO, and she sits down with him, and she says, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." And he says, "Well, I love my job. I've worked really hard for it. I have a master's, and my beautiful wife I've been married to for 25 years. We have 3 great kids, and they're in college, and blah, blah, blah." You know, he goes on about his wonderful life and just really speaking gratitude for all the blessings that he has. And she says, "You know, that's really interesting. Can you tell me what made you who you are today?" He goes, "Oh, that's really simple." He said, "My dad was an alcoholic and was very abusive. And my mom was a drug addict and was passed out most of the time. And my brother and I pretty much had to raise ourselves, and we really just didn't have much of a chance." And in that moment in the class, I'm hearing this story of 2 twin brothers who were raised in identical situations, and one chose to do something different with his life, and one chose to be a victim of his life. And I decided right then that I had a choice, and I was going to choose something great. Here's a little about me. Okay, so on the left, that's me and my sweet husband. We've been married for 16 years, and we learned very quickly early on how to choose faith over fear. I had big plans, and that I was not ready for marriage. I didn't want a boyfriend. Dating was kind of just something you did for fun, but that was it. I didn't want to go there. And I met my husband, and this is a very long and really fun story. It's probably my favorite story to tell, but it's gonna have to be another day and another time. But what I will tell you is that 3 weeks after we met, we were engaged. And 2 months later, we were married. And it was a huge leap of faith for me. I was completely terrified. I felt like I had received an answer to prayer, that this was something I was supposed to do, and if I didn't do it, I would regret it for the rest of my life. And so I took a deep breath, breathed through it, and I married this man. And 16 years later, we have moved 10 times. We've lived in 6 states. Each of our 4 children have been born in a different state. And we have a very crazy journey where we get to constantly choose faith over fear. Now, I want to tell you another story that's a little more dear to my heart. I don't know if you can see it, but this girl right here, this is my second daughter, and her name is Naomi. Sorry. When I got pregnant with Naomi, I had a really strong impression, just this feeling that I needed to be prepared for something. And I didn't know what I needed to be prepared for. I just knew that there was something that I needed to be prepared about. And at first, I was pretty naive, and so I'm thinking, oh, my husband and I both have twins in our family. Maybe we're having twins, and that's something that I need to be prepared for. And so I immediately started, thinking, okay, how will our life change? How will Mills change? What adjustments will we need to make in order to have twins? And we go into our first ultrasound, and results come back, there's only one baby in there. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's a boy, because I already have a girl, so a boy would be different, and that would be something I would need to be prepared for. So I started preparing for a boy and thinking up, researching, like, how do you raise a boy? How is that different from a girl? Silly things like that. And we go in halfway point, get our second ultrasound, and it's a girl. And I thought, what in the world? What am I supposed to be prepared for? Because this feeling, not only did it not go away, but it intensified. And the closer we got to delivery, the more intense it got. And I remember thinking, okay, she's due the week of Christmas. I love Christmas. Christmas is a very big to-do at my house. And so I decided maybe she's gonna come early, and so I need to have everything ready for Christmas. I kid you not, by Halloween, presents were wrapped and in the closet. My Christmas cards were stamped, addressed, and filled out and sitting on the kitchen counter. And the weekend after Halloween, we had the Christmas tree up, lights on the house, decorations everywhere, and I was ready for Christmas because I was going to be prepared, right? So silly. And we get closer and closer, and December comes, and there's no baby, and I'm still trying to figure out what it is I'm supposed to be prepared for. And on December 11th, we went into labor, and on December 12th, my baby girl was born with some complications. She was not breathing, she had water on her lungs, and she was very ill. And as soon as she was born, they rushed her out of the hospital, or out of the room that I was in, and my husband went in after them. And shortly later, he comes walking back in, and he takes my hand, and in tears, he tells me, they don't think she's gonna make it. We need to go say goodbye, because they're gonna life flight her to another hospital, and we may not get to see her again. And in that moment, a feeling of calm washed over me. And I knew what it was I was supposed to be prepared for. And I reached over and I grabbed his hand and I said, honey, this is it. This is what I've been talking about. We're prepared. We didn't know it, but just knowing that the Lord's hand has control of this, he knew it was going to happen. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. We went out, we said a prayer with her, told her we loved her, and said goodbye. They put her on a helicopter and life-flighted her and put me in an ambulance to meet her there. And by the time we arrived at the hospital, she was responding to antibiotics and she was starting to recover. And after 2 weeks in the NICU, she came home on Christmas Eve, and she came home to decorations and presents, and the Christmas cards were mailed out, and everything was perfect. But what I learned is that if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. But here's one thing more. This is the part, because I am betting. I'm going to bet, well, if I had a lot of money, I would bet a lot of money right now. But I would bet that a whole bunch of you in your head just thought, oh, I'm not prepared for anything. The truth of the matter is, you are. Everything you do every day, by following those little promptings every day, you are becoming more and more prepared for what you are created to do. And when that moment arises, when you have a new builder and you're terrified because you don't know what to do with them, guess what? You are prepared. You do know what to do with them. You just have to calm down and breathe through it, right? Okay, what is your mouse? We are all these very powerful elephants, right? But we all have this little mouse, and even when we speak these things that we're afraid of, they sound silly to us. They sound like we immediately dequalify them. Like we'll say what we're afraid of, and then we'll say, but it's really not that big of a deal because blah, 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 blah. Like earlier, when Brian was up here, and you guys were saying the things that you were afraid of in your business, and you're like, but then I would just go to the next person, so, that's not really a fear, right? So, I want you to think about what your mouses are. What are the things that you are afraid of in your business? And if you were to take a second and picture that moment where you are approaching a new person, where maybe you're at the cash register and there's someone coughing up a lung right behind you, and you're thinking, oh, I should tell them about oils. And your hands start shaking and your knees go weak. And you take a deep breath and you say, hey, guess what? Right? Okay, so put yourself in that moment. I don't care if it's a new builder. I don't care if it's a new contact. I don't care if it's teaching a class. Whatever it is, just put yourself in that moment and let your body have a physical response. Have a physical response to that emotion. Okay, just sit there and own it for a second. You there? Are you feeling it? Really? Okay, now start breathing. Make a mental choice to be excited and think about, what am I excited about? If you're standing in that cash register and the person behind you is coughing up a lung, and you're freaking out, and you take this deep breath and you go, I am so excited that I get to share something amazing with her. Because if I were eating at an amazing restaurant, I would tell her that too. So I'm just gonna tell her about this oil and see what happens. You just breathe through it and you choose something different. Now, in our business, we have a lot of these mouses. We deal with these mice all the time. But, I already did that. Here we go. We all have the big one. And the big one can come up more than once. And the big one is more about what Rosie was talking about and Bryant was talking about, where it paralyzes you, where it shakes you to your core. And for some people, that happens at Elite. For some people, it happens at their very first class. For some people, it happens at Gold or Blue Diamond. And the more I interview the leaders in this business and I start to get to know them and learn more about what makes them tick, I realize that they are facing the big one all the time. So the big one for me was the month I went diamond. I have a massive fear of failure, to the point where if there is even the potential of failing, it shakes me to my core, I freeze up, I feel paralyzed, and it keeps me from doing the things that I know I'm supposed to be doing. And the month that I declared to everyone and their dog that I was gonna go diamond, this fear slammed me in the face every couple of minutes. And it was the most difficult month of my entire life. Let me tell you how I got through this. My diamond month, I learned tools that will change the way that I do business. And these tools are really simple things. Here's the thing, you guys. This is really important for you to understand. There is a common theme today. Aside from Melissa's wisdom on eating healthy, there is a very common theme among the leaders here, right? Conquering fear, being great, choosing something different. All of these things, this is the real part. This is the part that's holding you back. You know how to find people. You know how to teach. You know how to enroll. You know how to duplicate. And if you don't, those are skills and they can be taught. This, fear is what keeps us from being great, even when we have the skills and tools to do so. So there's a reason why we're talking about it. So I'm going to tell you the tools that I learned the month I went diamond. The first one is affirmations. My team gets really sick of me talking about affirmations. They're laughing. I go blue in the face talking about affirmations, and it's because that I have a very solid belief in affirmations. Let me tell you where this belief stems from. As a kid, my parents loved Brian Tracy. Anyone love Brian Tracy here? Okay. If you don't, go get Brian Tracy and start to love him because he's worth your time. My parents loved Brian Tracy, and during some of the years that I was struggling with bullying and self-esteem and insecurities, I just really struggled as a kid of feeling my own self-worth. And my dad noticed it, and being the loving, perceptive father that he is, he decided to do something about it. And every morning before I left for school, I had to stand in front of the mirror with a smile on my face and say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. I had to do it 3 times. Now, if any one of those 3 times I slouched, or I went, I like myself, or something like that, we had to start over. And so I got really good about saying, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And he made me do it every day. And it was something that I had to get really good at. And then it went a step further. And I was struggling in some other areas in school and in my life. And he would come in and sit down next to my bed. And while I was sleeping, he would say, you're beautiful. You are loved. You are talented. You have worth. To the point where if he had to work nights or travel, he would record it on a cassette player and push play while I was sleeping. A lot of the self-confidence I have today, I attribute to the affirmations my father made me do every day. The next one is honoring the fear. This is something that I had to really work at. Learning to honor the fear. Taking in that moment and just saying, okay, I'm afraid. So often we see these things that we struggle with as weaknesses, and so we bury them and we bury them and we bury them, and they destroy us from the inside out. And if we allow the fear to surface and we honor it, we recognize it, that's when we're pushed to a moment when we can actually do something about it. About halfway through my diamond month, I was pushing this fear and pushing it because I did not have time to deal with fear. So I was shoving it and shoving it and shoving it and shoving it. And one day, it was a Saturday morning, I'm sitting on the couch, and diamond looks completely impossible. I'm looking at my back office going, this is a big fat joke. Like, there's no way I'm hitting diamond this month. And my husband comes in just as one tear starts to trickle down my face. And he's like, hey honey, you okay? Probably shouldn't have done that. Because all of a sudden he invited, I started bawling like he has never seen me cry before. In fact, he came over, he started holding me, I'm sobbing, I'm hyperventilating, like I am deeply, deeply crying. That fear has exploded out of me. And at one point, he's holding me, like 20 minutes have probably passed at this point, and he starts looking for his cell phone to see if he needs to call 911. Because it is not calming down. And then after about 10 more minutes, so about 30 minutes in all, I'm bawling my eyes out, and I slowly kind of sit up, and I start breathing, and I kind of wipe the tears away, and I turn to him and I say, oh, okay, what are we doing today? And he looked at me like, you are some kind of crazy. The next one is music. We hear about this all the time. Music affects how we live. It affects how we feel. It raises our energy or pulls our energy down. It's important to surround yourself with uplifting things at every turn. If you're playing a stupid game on your phone that's distracting you, turn it off. If you're watching a show that is discouraging, put on something motivational. Everything in your life needs to be uplifting. Prayer and meditation. This is a really important one, especially when creating a vision. I'm not going to share this right now, but I have a very strong testimony of the importance of vision. It is something that if you don't have, it's probably why you're not pushing past your fear. If you have a vision, of what it is you're trying to create, and you have developed this vision to the point where it feels like a memory because the details are so real, then that's when you find whatever you need to get past that fear. Oils. Guys, if you're not using oils, use them. Okay? If you don't have Desiree's book, get it. The Go Diamond blend I used all day long for 30 days. I didn't know if it was working, but there was no way I wasn't going to try it. And then the last one is a support system. Don't go for a goal or try to conquer something without letting people around you know what you're trying to do. The people who really care about you. Family, your downline, your upline, get them involved, because that support system, I can't tell you, when I declared Diamond, I told everybody, and I thought it was a mistake. But what happened was every single time I started to feel like I was falling apart, I'd get a text message, "You're gonna go Diamond!" And I was like, "Oh damn, I am!" And then I'd be freaking out one day, and one of my team would call me and be like, "I can't believe you're going Diamond this month!" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I am!" And every time that support system kicked in, my kids would write these notes on my pillow, "Diamond Mom," and they'd stick it on my pillow, or on my mirror. They'd put these diamond quotes on my mirror. But the support system is really important. Okay. I need to finish here for just a minute. I think I'm reaching my time, but this is important. In that moment of fear, you are given an opportunity to choose faith. And when you do this, you find hope, and you look for the miracle. Growing up, my mom taught us a principle called the best part, or the favorite part. And as we've gotten older, we've learned more about this. When we're struggling with something really big, it could be a really bad day, or it could be a really big trial. We call our mom and we vent, we release it. And once we've let it all out, she says, "All right, this is my best part," or "This is the best part," or "This is my favorite part." And we all go, "Oh yeah, this is the part where you turn it over to the Lord and you watch a miracle happen." And so I told my mom how I was feeling about this and how I wanted to represent it in the talk. And her talent is poetry. She can express anyone's feelings in poetry. So she wrote me a short poem. Dan, be patient, I'm almost done. So I get up one morning and chaos has ensued. Children running everywhere, and one is in the nude. I walk into the kitchen, the sink has overflowed, and I see out the window that my mangled bike out in the road. Then my husband calls from work, says we have a choice to make. They asked if I would like a job that's in another state. As life begins to fall apart, one thing after another, my answer's clear, I need to vent, and so I call my mother. She always listens quietly to all my woes and fears, then with excitement she repeats the thought I've heard for years. "This is my favorite part," she says, "invite the Spirit in." From there, I calmly realize to let the shift begin. The favorite part is watching as heaven's hand steps in, and life takes turns I never thought, and miracles begin. The plan my Father has for me unfolds in His own time, and if I pay attention, I will see which plan is mine. So when life gets hectic as it does, and answers are unclear, my favorite part comes into play, when faith replaces fear. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, team cohorts, you have a choice. You have the opportunity to choose to be something really great. You have the ability to choose faith in that moment when you are fighting fear. And it is only when you fight that fear and you push past it that something great really happens. The choice is yours.